thank you for that performance.
Oh, that's all right.
The truth is, you don't need to beg us to do a performance. Luke and I will sing at the drop of a coin. It's a problem, actually. That's really. I never thought I'd meet someone who was so willing to sing for no reason at all until I met Luke Evans.
We are literally cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, we are.
So I feel like there were a lot of off-screen trouble between the two of you. Is that
Still
true?
is.
We like to
Still
cause trouble wherever we go, but make people laugh in the process. It was just a lot of fun playing these characters. You know, first of all, we were massive, massive fans of the original. You know, we were both kids when they came out. He was 10, I was 12. I was in South Wales, he was in South Florida. And the climate was rather different. It probably meant even more to me because it was always dark and gloomy where I came from. So to go in and watch a Disney film in a little cinema in our village was the highlight of my year. It always was. And to bring them to life, we've both felt very lucky, you know, and we knew that we could have a lot of fun and laugh. And there were moments when some of the funniest moments we have, I think, are things that we made up on the moment.
The forest sequence when the two of us are riding in that wagon with Maurice, that whole idea of calming Luke down with stories about the war was something that we literally came up with on the spot. Widows and all that. And we had about like 30 variations of it. Some of them were even more insane than what you see on the screen, but you're always hoping when you get paired with somebody, and I've had a couple of those films that I've done where it's all about the chemistry between the two, you know, characters. And the day I met Luke, especially because I didn't even realize we both came from musical theater. You know, Luke from the West End, me from Broadway. And so we had this common language and this common understanding and this common goal of wanting to do justice to a movie that was so, I cannot stress this enough, so pivotal in our childhoods. You know, the second golden age of Disney animation, from Little Mermaid to Beauty and the Beast to Aladdin, then to Lion King, defined my growing up. They really did. I was 10 years old when Beauty and the Beast came out, and those Alan Menken, you know, Howard Ashman songs, they really were the soundtrack to my childhood. And so bringing a song like Gaston to life, that's like a dream come true. So it was incredible.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Good, how are you?
I would like to know, how did you feel when you tried on your costumes for the first time?
Oh.
I can tell you, Luke with his body felt a lot better than I did. I can tell you right off the bat.
You're a little
I've always said, and I always will say, because I think it's a massive part of my creation of a character, especially somebody like Gaston, the look is half of his ego, you know, the hair and the fitted red leather. You know, we went through about 4 or 5 incarnations of that leather jacket before we found the right color of blood red that represented the sinister part of his nature. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but that red jacket, which is obviously so synonymous with Gaston in the original and the same here, but that only goes on when he puts Maurice into the carriage to lock him up, and that's the first time you see it. And we made that conscious decision, you know. And when you put something on like that, there's so much work and effort. Those buttons all had antlers on each button, and I had a pinky ring which was an antler impressed into red stone. It was all antler themed, as you can imagine. And it looked fantastic, and you put the wig on, and I mean, there you go. You know, I remember taking it off on the last day, and my hair and makeup lady, she's like, "Okay, well, say goodbye for the final time." And I went, "See you, Gaston," and she took it off, and I went, "Well, hello, you." And she was like, "Oh, no, art is impersonating life." I was joking, obviously. But he was a hard character to let go. I think we both felt very sad to let them go, because we'd had so much fun and brought so much happiness to a lot of villains to make people laugh. You know, that's quite a gift, you know, because usually you just make them hate you. But we had the opportunity to do both.
Yeah.
And they love you at the end. I mean, you have full redemption.
Well, no, and that was important. You know, with LeFou in particular, the character in the original movie he is a product of cartoon conceits, right? He has his teeth knocked out. He's literally thrown across rooms by Gaston multiple times. You know,
it wasn't going to go.
Yeah, there's a part where snow falls on him and makes him a snowman, which I fought to put in the movie, actually. And you know, for me, it was about adding dimension. I think for every character, about adding dimension. And one of the things that I really love about LeFou in this particular version is he does have this interesting arc where he starts to question the blind devotion that he has to this person who, during the course of the film, turns into the real monster. And that was such an interesting thing to play. And, you know, again, we didn't want to just literally recreate a movie that in of itself is pretty perfect, right? You can't do that. You have to add. You have to keep building on the legacy of that which everybody is awaiting and looking forward to, but also give them new surprises. And for us, the new songs, the new moments, all of it adds up. And it's a collective experience that feels old in the best way, but also new in an amazing way. And that was so important to us.
No, I kind of just going off of that. Sorry, what made you truly sign on to do this iconic movie? I mean,
the money. You know, it was one of those. Honestly, I literally would have done this movie for nothing.
Yeah.
It was, and the reason I signed on was because it was so iconic, and it was so. Beauty and the Beast was my Frozen. You know, like, this was the movie I saw 5 times as a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like, that was just recreating these moments, these iconic moments that I grew up with, knowing that my daughters are going to grow up with this as hopefully their definitive version of the story.
With that psycho smile.
With that, yeah, they looked at the first poster and they were terrified. Their response was like the little kid seeing Jack Nicholson in The Shining for the first time. Like, it was like, why are you so creepy, Dada? But it's true. Like, I, you know, the other thing is, and I was saying this to Luke, I can't think of a big screen musical, live action, that my kids have seen on the silver screen in their lifetimes. And that is unacceptable to me. Like, coming from musical theater, think about that. Like, we're not going to take them to Moulin Rouge. We're not going to take them to, Les Mis. You can't take them to Nine. This is going to be, for many of your kids, and my kids certainly, the first time they ever see a musical on screen that isn't animated. That's huge. That's huge.
My godchildren are very young, and I've got lots of kids in my family who are just a little tired of me doing movies that they can't watch. So the day that I got offered it, and the first thing I did was text all their parents and just tell them, I'm going to be in Beauty and the Beast, and you can finally come to the cinema. And they all were at the London premiere, and weirdly they were happy, but they're also a little sad that I was the bad guy again. I was like, all right, well, you know, I'm trying my best, guys, you know. It's like, you can't win on this. Like, yeah, it's a process, right? Yeah.
Do you guys have a lot of chance for improv where there are things that you threw in there, ideas that
Hugely. I mean, they were, the moments that I remember were on the cart in the forest. There were lots of different versions of that. Then there was
the end of Gaston.
Yeah, my God.
I literally did about 30 different versions of that ending. The one that they chose was I've never spelled this outside before. I just realized I'm illiterate. That was, every time we shot it,
hundreds.
Every time we shot it, it was different. Because every time my goal was to make Luke laugh and get him in trouble. But, there were so many opportunities. There's also a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor that I hope you'll see on the Blu-ray and the extras, because there was some great scene when we come into the village. To remember to when she's in trouble and when Bella's in trouble and we come in,
yes,
it's hero time,
just brilliant.
and we come in and Gaston hands me his gun, and the gun goes off in my hand, and you just hear a cow die in the background. And it was such a funny moment.
It was. I mean, there is a complete spin-off of scenes of these two characters where they just are the most blundering bunch of.
My
idiots.
fight at the end of the movie was involved a toilet played by Stephen Merchant at one point. I mean, there's so many great parts that are hopefully you get to see one day.
Sounds like you had a lot of fun with the movie. Were there any parts that were challenging for one of you in your roles?
The physicality of the fight sequence at the end was going to be demanding because it took a lot of stunt rehearsals and training. So I had to. I remember quite a few times on weekends once we'd finished. I came in and they had a big cherry picker which they would raise another 6 feet and then another 6 feet, and I was on cables and I had to land and I had to jump and I had to sort of reflect what the beast was doing on another turret, doing it in his beastly way, where I was just a human being, so I had to sort of find a way of doing it like a Spider-Man with long hair. You know? And I managed to get it by the time we shot it, but it was but I think it was like a 42-foot high leap that I do in the film with a cable, and it's a trust exercise. I mean, you're trusting a stunt guy, you know, with your life, and it's an interesting thing to do. But I found that quite challenging, but very rewarding, and thank God it's in the film. You know, I feel that way. They often don't make the movie, and then you're really annoyed.
I've seen this on the stage many times, and I have never seen a performance like yours. Bring so much love and strength and power to the character. So I thank you for that personally.
Thank you.
And like you said, our kids are now going to be able to see this. My children are being raised in the theater, and I appreciate people that come from the theater that can bring this to life, because I think you give it a different experience. And what challenges was it on bringing it to the big screen, but incorporating those theater to make it almost a perfect production? There's no, you know, you're not on a short time frame of learning your roles, and you get to perfect it, but there's challenges with that.
Well, there's a fine line, I think, in certain roles where you can push the theatricality more than others, and I felt with Gaston, the lines on the page were so theatrical in a way, you know, that I had a license to push it, but it's a fine line, because if you go too far, you become a parody of yourself, and you don't want that. You want people to still sort of believe you couldn't. And the best compliment for me is like, I know a Gaston. You know, there's a Gaston in my life, and he's a douchebag, you know. I'm like, okay, well, I've sort of managed to find this fine line between, you know, being a larger-than-life theatrical sort of creature, but also stay in the realm of Disney realism, which is was a challenge, but I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. Very nice.
Now that we have a new generation that's going to be watching this film, what are you hoping that your characters of Gaston and LeFou are leaving for that generation?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think that, you know, Gaston in particular represents a really interesting character, because there's, I think one of the most important lessons to be learned comes surprisingly out of that character, which is you have a guy who is provoking fear based on a character that nobody knows, that people are scared of because they've never seen him, but they're afraid of what he's capable of. Feeding into those fears and going to attack someone because based on the fact that you've never met them before, but what you believe they're capable of, well, that's as relevant today as it was when Beauty and the Beast was first written. And I think that theme is the thing that I hope, you know, kids can look at, and they're not going to understand it now, but that's something as they revisit this film over and over and over again, this idea of never judging a book by its cover is so important, right? So that's what I would say I hope they take from it.
Love conquers hate, and that's basically the running theme, and to watch it all being carried by a very strong female lead character, who basically, at the end of the day, guys, she saves the prince. It's one
multiple times.
Multiple times, you know. If it wasn't for her, you know, this story wouldn't have the backbone that it does, and it comes from a very fearless, independently spirited young woman who reads, who's intellectual, who wants to learn, who sees that there are no boundaries to her world. It might be right there and then, but she knows there's a world out there to conquer and to discover, and she doesn't need a man to do it. I mean, she's a 21st century Disney princess, and Emma was exactly the right person to portray that character. And it's a role model. I know you've said this, and it's lovely. I mean, the best compliment I guess Emma could have is that his two girls who are quite young they will look to her, and he'll be proud of them and happy for them to look at Emma's performance and Belle in this version as a brilliant role model for young ladies and young boys as well. You know, it's not just one sex; it's both sexes can look at this young woman and see, you know, that's how you should be.
And that's the other thing that I think is so wonderful about this movie and what Bill Condon has done is just the inclusiveness of it all. I think that's a great lesson.
We have time for one last question. Okay.
As fans, which is your favorite scene in the movie or song?
It would have to be for me the Gaston Tavern sequence. For two reasons. One, it's my song. Two, it was the one piece of the whole film where we got to rehearse for 4 to 5 weeks because it was incredibly technical. Obviously, we had all the villagers in the room. There's vignette stories going on, which you have to watch it a few times to notice. All that took a lot of time, and obviously the music was playing throughout the whole thing. We had to get onto roofs, onto tables, and there was swords. There was murals that we had to reflect in the back of each shot, and there was a lot of stuff going on, which took time and development and collaboration and a lot of working it out. But that's what we come from. We come from the theatre. We're used to that rehearsal experience, and so to have that on a film was a joy. Also, we got paid 1 month more.
Yeah. You know, I agree. I mean, not to sound redundant, but it is Gaston. You know, it's so rewarding to watch an audience now after 2 years, of working on this in some capacity or another, to now share it with an audience and see the adrenaline boost that it gives the film when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this up-tempo song with people dancing on a table, and you can feel the energy of the audience wanting to jump into that pub and raise a glass to Gaston alongside of you, and that is the brilliance, again, of these Menken and Ashman songs, is they are so unbelievably addictive. And Luke and I have now been singing this song in one way or another for 2 years.
Crazy,
and it's not because we want to, it's because we can't stop. It's because we are literally haunted by these songs. So
and to watch, I think that the other night when we had the world premiere here in Los Angeles, and people clapped at the end of our number. I mean, it's
crazy.
We've done what we needed to do here. We have taken people out of the world in which we live and made them escape into this